The presence of a countdown clock makes everything that bit more stressful. For instance, can I finish introducing this video before this timer reaches 0? Admit it, you're stressed out thinking about it. And it's even worse in games, which all too often decide to add a nerve-shredding countdown to already stressful situations, like boss fights, trying to escape a collapsing building, or being mobbed by zombies. Seriously, games, isn't what's happening here clearly intense enough without adding a ticking clock to the mix? Here are the countdowns in games so stressful that we still haven't unclenched. Along the way, beware spoilers for the following Oh! For
The survivalist rule of 3 states that you can stand 3 weeks without food, 3 days without water, and 3 minutes without air. And 3 seconds of the music that plays when Sonic is drowning, because that shit is horrible. In the Sonic series, the countdown comes into effect whenever the titular hedgehog ventures into an underwater section of a level. Sonic might have a world-class runner's legs, but not the lung capacity to match apparently, because Sega's blue mascot can only handle being submerged without air for about 30 seconds before his lungs give out and he dies, falling off the screen and leaving behind a lingering sense of guilt and a trail of bubbles. So he did have some air left in him, no big deal. Also, Sega has asked me to stop asking about it in this legally unenforceable cease and desist letter. What's legendary about this countdown to drowning, however, is how stressful it is. Once underwater, 5-second intervals are marked with subtle ding sound effects that you will definitely miss, seeing as basically everything in Sonic makes a ding if you hadn't noticed. What you definitely will notice, though, is what comes next. When Sonic has around 12 seconds left to live, a timer appears, as does a frantic tune that's precision engineered to make your brain dump all its adrenaline into your bloodstream at once. Having likely missed the earlier warnings, the start of this music is your cue to frantically search around for an air bubble, which isn't easy, bearing in mind Sonic moves underwater like he's sinking through treacle, and also bearing in mind that your brain is now too paralysed by stress to even press the right buttons. A simply horrible tune. Now here it is again for no reason other than the fact that in making this video we had to listen to it a whole bunch of times, so the least you can do is listen to it 3 or 4 times in solidarity. Thank you for your support.
Do you see this? It will be the time limit for our final battle. This nuclear module is set to detonate at the precise moment of her death.
The Metal Gear series isn't exactly known for half measures, except when it comes to cutscenes, which are measured in half hours, up to 6 consecutive halves. But in general, this bombastic, decade-spanning tactical espionage narrative has a reputation for being over the top in every way imaginable, which is why it's not really that surprising that the final boss battle in Metal Gear Solid takes place atop the wreckage of a nuclear-capable mech robot, while a deadly airstrike is inbound to your location and is also a shirtless fistfight. And is also timed. Yes, you, the stressed-out player, have a mere 3 minutes to take down Snake's twin brother using only your fists. And if that wasn't unfair enough already, villain Liquid Snake starts the countdown before delivering a lengthy cutscene monologue, explaining the scenario in his languid British drawl.
You could enjoy one brief moment of love before the end. If you cross this line, you fall. At this height, it will kill even you. Have at you, Snake!
Have at you? How about have our 30 seconds back? That's a sixth of our time! What ensues is one of the most needlessly buttock-clenching boss fights in gaming history, as you try to keep your eyes trained on Liquid's polygonal fists and not on the massive beeping timer that's counting down the seconds to a game over. Should you succeed, your heart rate still won't get the chance to return to normal, as Snake then enjoys a leisurely rendezvous with Meryl, who was also there.
Snake.
Meryl. It started.
I must be heavy.
Looks like we're not gonna have a love scene after all.
No Snake, no love scene. Get out the building, maybe. The airstrike.
Let's get out of here.
Snake, it's freezing outside. You need some clothes.
Oh my god, no, what you need is to get the heck out. Why is no one in this series concerned about time? Oh, right, the hour-long cutscenes. Should have been a clue.
Whoa, 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 hold on a second, son. Listen, it's an existing condition, all right? It's okay, it happened a long time ago. It's only a matter of time before she turns. Hey, don't worry. I've got Zombrex. Yeah, well, you better have a lot, because there ain't none here, and the rescue ain't coming for 3 days.
Say what you like about zombies, and I frequently do, but they know how to take things slow. Which, to be fair, is probably because they're dead. A state of affairs that's led to A, muscle wastage in the legs that hinders their progress, and B, a gentle letting go of the pressures of everyday life. I mean, who cares if you've got the latest iPhone if your thumbs have fallen off? Pretty deep. But this kind of Zen lifestyle is well beyond the reach of Dead Rising 2 protagonist Chuck Green, and indeed you, the player controlling him. Because all of Dead Rising 2, and we mean all of it, is riddled with countdowns. Missions in the game can only be completed if you get to them in a timely manner, with objectives stacking up on the right side of your screen, each with its own expiration time. This one, for instance, is a reminder to pick up your little daughter Katie some Zombrex medicine to stop her turning into a zombie herself. Which is probably the most stressful time limit in the Dead Rising series, a series that's full of stressful time limits. Plus, it's the kind of conscience-pricking objective that makes it really hard to enjoy mowing down roomfuls of zombies. Yes, I'm dismembering them, but it feels kind of hollow now. Like they're skulls when I smash them. Because, I don't know, I guess their brains dry out? Momentary distractions aside, these time pressures in Dead Rising 2 feel very real because the game won't stop if you fail to hit your deadlines. Instead, it keeps going, except now your daughter is forever one of the Walking Dead, for instance.
Katie.
Ah, Zombrex. I knew there was something I was meant to pick up. Sorry, Katie.
It's important to Luigi's character that he never, ever, ever catches a break. But you might assume that Luigi had finally struck it lucky with the release of New Super Luigi U, a platformer that starred Mario's gangly brother and started life as a downloadable extra for New Super Mario Bros. U, but was later released as its own game. With Luigi in the limelight, it looked as if Mario's oft-overlooked brother was about to finally compete on equal footing with his more famous sibling. Or at least, it did until you played it. See, Super Luigi U had a hidden secret. Every single level came with a 100-second time limit for completion, and if you didn't hit the finish line before the clock ran down, well, that's one dead Luigi.
Oh no.
And if you're thinking 100 seconds sounds like a lot of time, bear in mind that the Mario version of the game regularly gave its hero 400 or even 500 seconds to complete a level. Which, if taken as a fraction, means Nintendo loves Luigi approximately 1/5 of not at all. Combine this with Luigi's floatier, unfamiliar controls compared to Mario, and the fact that every level starts with the hurry up chime and faster panic-inducing music, and every moment of Super Luigi U becomes a fraught exercise in clock watching. Looks like Luigi couldn't catch a break after all.
Oh no.
Oh well, I guess Nintendo knows what the people want. Dead Luigis.
There are some situations in which you never want to be hurried, any involving spikes, for instance. But spikes and hurrying are kind of the whole deal of Prince of Persia, a 1989 platformer for the home computer that would go on to spawn an entire series, despite the fact that an estimated 95% of people who played it were plunged into a stress-induced coma and never woke up. Probably. We would fact-check that if we weren't so stressed out by Prince of Persia. See, whereas most adventure games would be content to simply let their sword-wielding enemies or collapsing masonry provide the drama, Prince of Persia took things to the next level. At the start of the game, wicked wizard Jafar tells the Sultan's daughter to marry him or die in 60 minutes' time, a straightforward enough idea that Jafar nevertheless feels he needs a wardrobe-sized piece of equipment to properly illustrate. Little on the nose, Jafar, but you do you. Terrifyingly, that timer is in actual effect throughout the game, meaning you've got just 60 real minutes to get to the final battle, or else it's game over. Dying puts you back to the start of the map, but doesn't stop the clock, which means at no point in the whole game can you ever relax and take your time, which is highly alarming in a game full of things that you'd really rather take a moment for, like leaping over this chasm, for instance. The result is you'll end up dying way more than necessary because you're rushing to get ahead of the clock. On the plus side, thanks to Prince of Persia's lovingly drawn rotoscope animation, dying still looks staggeringly painful all these years later. Wow. Timeless.
The only thing you should have to do after beating the final boss of a game is parade up and down your living room wearing a blanket as a cape and singing a self-penned song about how clever and brave you are. We've all done it.
No, we haven't.
Yeah, me either. But try telling this to Galaxy Crossing hero Samus Aran, who regularly has to endure stressful running and shooting sequences even after sending the final boss to its space grave, or sprave if you will. That's because nearly every single Metroid game features a countdown sequence, in which Samus must flee for her life to escape before everything around her explodes into molten metal goop. This usually happens right at the very end of the game and typically involves sprinting hell for leather back through a maze-like game world while time ticks down, trying desperately to remember which path through its labyrinthine layout is the path to escape, all the while sobbing and cursing yourself for not remembering that this happens every damn time. Next time, Samus, maybe tie a bit of thread to your spaceship before you go looking for the boss. If that sounds too low-tech, you could call it Space Thread, or Thread.
Propulsion sequence activated.
Metroid's frequent use of timed escape sequences means that by the time the credits roll, your nerves will be more shredded than a Dave Bautista. Mercifully though, Nintendo has seen fit to finally give Samus something of a break. Consider the ending to Metroid Other M, which instead closes on a tender scene of Samus reunited with the helmet of her deceased superior, Adam Malkovich.
Self-destruction protocol activated.
Oh, for God's sake.
If you say Cole Train to gamers these days, they'll probably think of the charismatic Augustus Cole from the shooter series Gears of War.
Yo, the Cole Train don't go woo-woo, it's woo!
What a guy. But to an older generation of players, the phrase has a totally different meaning in that there was a whole bit of Final Fantasy VII set on a train full of coal that's about to crash into a town. What can I say? Things were tougher back then. This coal train is encountered when your heroes are trying to obtain the powerful huge materia, which is aboard said locomotive. Problem is, you've only got 10 minutes to catch it. Which would be fine if your progress wasn't constantly halted by turn-based battles that are never the quickest of brawls and seem to take even longer when you're wrestling the clock. Eventually though, if you haven't fainted from stress, you'll find your way to the front of the train, having murderized everything else on board, including whoever was in charge of pumping the brakes before the train stacks it into the town of North Corel, leaving you to perform one final fiddly quick-time event sequence still against the clock. But if you manage it, the train does stop in time. Hey, do you think what would happen if we hadn't stopped it? Well, turns out not much, as in the event of a crash, the team survives and you can buy an Ultima materia with cash instead. In fact, it seems the only real damage was to some empty tents and boxes, which kind of makes this timer-induced stress feel extra unnecessary. And not to blame the townsfolk of North Corel, but maybe don't leave all your stuff on the railway tracks. Just saying.
So those were some of the games that gave you a really weird and surprisingly tense countdown scene. So tense. Why? What is it about time? Oh gosh, she's back. If you enjoyed this, then why not please, leave a comment. If you can think of any other stressful situations in games with a timer, let us know. And if you enjoyed this, then focus, Luke. Why not watch one of these other games? This one's one of the forgotten games. This one here's the stressful moments. First person. If you like this, then subscribe.